Welcome to the Ecomm Breakthrough Podcast. Are you ready to unlock the full potential and growth in your business? You've already crossed 7 figures in sales, but the challenge is knowing how to take your business to the next level. Join Josh Hadley, an 8-figure eComm business owner and investor, as he interviews highly successful business owners. Get ready, because you're going to learn specific actions you can take today to help your business reach its full potential and leave a lasting impact on the world.
Hi, this is Josh Hadley. I'm the host of the Ecomm Breakthrough Podcast, where I interview the top business leaders in e-commerce. This episode is brought to you by Ecomm Breakthrough Consulting, where I help 7-figure companies grow to 8 figures and beyond. You know, I started Hadley Designs back in 2015, and I grew it to an 8-figure brand in about 7 years. I certainly made a lot of mistakes along the way that made the path to getting to 8 figures a little bit longer than it needed to be. At times, I even doubted whether the business could even survive and if it could actually become a real brand. You know, I wish I would have had a guide along the way that would have been able to help me steer clear of those stumbling blocks that I ran into and get to those 8 figures a little bit faster. For all the listeners out there with businesses, if you've hit a plateau and you're kind of looking for what the next steps might be to take your business to the next level, then go to ecommbreakthrough.com. That's eComm with 2 M's to learn more. As a special bonus to all of my podcast listeners, I'm giving away one business strategy audit session worth $10,000 at no cost. And I'm doing this every single month. So the way that you can enter to kind of claim this business strategy audit is to email me at josh@ecommbreakthrough.com with the subject line strategy audit and tell me why I should choose your business. And if you don't win this month, don't worry, because you're automatically going to be entered for future months as well. Today, I have Chad Franson here of Rise 25, who has done thousands of interviews with successful entrepreneurs and CEOs. We have flipped the script, and he's going to be interviewing me today. Welcome, Chad.
Hey, Josh. Thanks so much. It's great to be here. Hey, question for you. Would you consider yourself a lifelong entrepreneur?
Yeah, I would definitely say I'm a lifelong entrepreneur. For whatever reason, there's just something inside of me that doesn't allow me to rest at night. I'm always got a lot of business ideas going. And that started at a really young age. My parents weren't entrepreneurs, either of them, but they allowed me to kind of explore my passion in entrepreneurship. I was always the kid selling candy on the corner of the street, or selling snow cones, or during wintertime, it was hot chocolate. But what I love is that my parents were always there supporting me, even with kind of my wild, crazy business ideas. In fact, my dad even built me a wooden candy stand that I was able to set up. And we have some fun family photos of those, of the different stuff that I was selling. So yeah, going back at a very young age, I don't know what got into me at a young age, but yeah, from the very onset, I've been looking for business ideas.
Do you have any days that were like memorably lucrative selling some of those things? Like you were like, wow, I really cleaned up today.
That's a great question. You know, I don't know that there's one day that necessarily sticks out. As I look back, I do remember like there were days where I'd bring home a good amount of money. I was like, wow, look how much money I'm making. It was probably like, I don't know, 20 or 40 bucks or something like that. But to me, it's a series of those events that I feel like I can look back and be like, wow, I was a successful like little entrepreneur back in the day, even though I don't remember like a specific amount or a big day, but it's the repetition at which I was able to do it. It wasn't like, oh, I tried to sell lemonade one day and I didn't have as many customers, and so I stopped, you know, or anything like that. I just kept going. And I'm sure there were days where it was probably a little quiet, and then days where, you know, we were crushing it. But is that repetition, I think, that helped me with my mindset that I still use today, because every day is different.
Yeah, great. So maybe you can continue with me on your entrepreneurial journey. You started out doing things like that. How did that kind of evolve as you grew up to be an adult?
Yeah. So I did a lot of candy stands, like I mentioned, when I was young. but didn't really pursue it any further while I was in high school. In high school, I worked at a tree farm while I was in high school, and then worked for a city. But when I got into college, I feel like this is where kind of, the dots really started connecting for me. So I went to school at the University of Utah. My undergrad was in finance, and then I also completed my MBA there as well. But really, it was my first year there at the University of Utah. I had just come home from serving a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I served that in South Korea, which was an amazing experience. As soon as I came home, it was kind of like, all right, the world's my oyster right now. What is it that I want to get into? And I had a friend in one of my classes that said, hey, there is this entrepreneur series, kind of club or organization here at the school that is looking to bring like student leaders on to run this program, and they're paying them a scholarship. And at the time, I love that my parents made me pay for college. And so at the time I was like, I got to figure out how I'm going to pay for next semester's tuition. And so I was like, heck yeah, like if this is going to be for scholarship money, like sign me up. So I did. I went through and I interviewed with the student leaders and was fortunate enough to actually be invited to be the co-chair of the entire Entrepreneur Series program at the University of Utah. And that was a fantastic experience. I did that for 2 years. And really it was like a mini Shark Tank, if you will, where it was the largest student ran business plan competition in the nation. And so we'd have students from all over the state of Utah from different colleges submit their business plans. And then at the end, there would be, a series of pitches that they would go through. And at the end, the winner would receive $40,000, right, as kind of like seed money for their business. So number one, I was just surrounded by really cool like business ideas. Secondly, obviously the panel of judges were very smart people. These were, people that had venture capital firms, the CEO of Zions Bank. Like these are like well-known names in the state of Utah that served as these judges that I got to rub shoulders with. And so that really, really formed my, strengthened my resolve for wanting to get into entrepreneurship. And then from there, my final year at the University of Utah, it was my final year in my MBA program, really, is I was a part of the Lassonde New Venture Development program. And what that is they do this for select individuals. You have to apply to get in. But what you do is you get a real life, like brand new startup, right? And you and a team of, 4 to 5 others, you're helping set that strategy for the entire business. The one that I worked on was Doxy.me. Okay. So this was basically virtually seeing your doctor. And this was back in 2014, right? I think now it's not uncommon to hear, oh yeah, you could, pick up your iPhone and see a doctor virtually. Like in 2014, that was brand new, very new technology. And we were able to, I interviewed a lot of doctors, like talked about like, hey, is this something you guys could use? Furthering that business case and strategy. And they're still very successful and they've grown a lot today. Obviously, the pandemic helped expedite things a lot there. But that really, I would say, solidified, my desire for entrepreneurship. But it still wasn't at that time when I went into, entrepreneurship myself. It was actually a little bit later on. So while going through my MBA, I applied to different jobs, obviously. And so the job I got right out of college was in American Airlines Leadership Development Program. So we moved from Utah and we moved here to Dallas, Texas, where we're currently at right now. And I worked there for American Airlines for 5 years. But while I was there, it was really like 6 months into the job. I still had that entrepreneur bug in me. And I was like, hey, my wife and I were like, hey, how do we make money on the side? And so that's when we kind of started our own business. That's where we got into custom wedding invitations was the business that we ended up getting into. And then from there, it was working late nights into, early mornings with my wife's business, and then going to work full time for American Airlines during the day. And that's kind of been the culmination of my journey.
Wow. Wow. Great. Hey, I guess there's a lot to kind of unpack there. Did you end up getting a scholarship?
Yes. Yep. I did get a scholarship, and that's actually why I decided to keep going there at the University of Utah, because I had this great, opportunity with the Entrepreneur Series, the Lassonde program there. It was giving me a scholarship, and I knew I could continue that if I furthered my, education. So that's why I decided to do my MBA right after. I know not many people advise to do that, but for me, it was definitely the right decision to make.
Great. Did you ever have to do a pitch before the judges?
You know what? I actually did. So that last year when I was in the Lassonde New Venture Development Program, I had started this was my own business idea, right? So this was a software for HVAC companies. And what I did is I went to probably 20 different HVAC companies in the Salt Lake Valley and went to them, asked them hey, what are your biggest challenges and problems? And from that, kind of saw a series of common challenges that they were struggling with. So created a software that would allow their technicians to go out and check, different, as more of kind of a checklist. And then it would kind of create this report that they could then send to the customer that was more professional and even offered some upsells to it. Right. And so a lot of people were very interested. I ended up getting a few paying customers. I think I started with 5. But then I transitioned to American Airlines, and then I didn't love SaaS. And so I was like, I'll just kind of let this fizzle out. But to answer your question, I started that kind of my final year of college. And yeah, the script was flipped, so to speak, where I was on the other side and as a participant of the Utah Entrepreneur Series. And so I won second place in the University of Utah, business plan competition. And then I didn't make it further into the top 10 for the statewide one, but still a fantastic experience and so fun being on the management side of things first, but then on the opposite end as the actual entrepreneur going through the process was really cool.
Yeah. Given your experience as both the entrepreneur and on the other side, what would you say is kind of important in developing an elevator pitch?
Yeah, it's got to be short, sweet, and concise. Where I found people struggled is that if you can't explain it to me in, 20 seconds or less, I'm out, right? And there were a lot of medical inventions and stuff that people would bring. And I don't have a medical background, right? But there was a difference for those people that could explain to people that don't have a medical background and say, hey, here's this new technology. Here's this new medical device that we've developed. Here's the problem it solves. And here's how we're going to get it into, doctor's hands. People that could do that articulately in 20 to 30 seconds would go on to crush it. Whereas the people that would be kind of left me vague and be I have no idea what this is or who's going to use this. And that applies to any business, right? So
yeah, definitely.
That's what I noticed.
So you graduated with your MBA and with your bachelor's degree, and you went to American Airlines. You were working there for 5 years, and then you were working nights with your wife. And that was Hadley Designs?
Yes. Yep. So that's where Hadley Designs was born. So I started at American Airlines in August of 2014. And then Hadley Designs officially became an entity in March of 2015. So yeah, it was. So my wife graduated college with her undergrad in early childhood education. At the same time, I graduated with my MBA. So we both kind of graduated together. We were able to walk together at graduation, which was a really cool experience. And then when we moved down here to Texas, I had a good job with American Airlines, and we kind of asked ourselves, what is it that, you should do, Becca? And she didn't necessarily want to go work for somebody right off the bat, which I thought was interesting. I was like, I fully support that. Like, let's go explore. Like, we've got time on our hands, right? No kids at this point. Like, we just graduated college. And so she's always had a passion for art and creativity. I mean, from a young age, Becca, like for me, I've always been the kid with the candy stand on the corner of the street, right? On the opposite end, my wife's the kid that could just sit there for hours and hours just drawing like really amazing artwork. And so she kind of explored that. And so she ended up, I think a friend was getting married, and she's like, hey, if you'll let me give it a whirl. Let me try to do your wedding invitations. And so she self-taught herself Adobe Illustrator and ended up designing these wedding invitations for a friend. And then her friend was like, oh my gosh, these are so amazing. Like, I have to pay you. And Becca was like, no, like, I was just doing this for fun. Like, you're a friend. Like, here's your stuff. She's like, no, like, you are really good. So I think that gave her the boost of confidence that she needed. And then for me, it sparked a whole business idea of, hey, what if we offer your services to other people that are getting married? And so that's what we ended up doing. I started, what's funny is at the time, Facebook was, still a lot of people were using it, right? We're back in 2015 here. And so Facebook groups were a brand new thing. And so I remember I would go into these Facebook groups, and there were a ton for weddings all over the nation. And I would just go join all of these Facebook groups. And then I would go in there, and there would be a lot of people that are like, hey, I'm looking for recommendations of where to get my wedding invitations done. Then I would be one of the first to reply. And then I had a whole series of sales questions or qualifying questions that I would ask that led them through a whole sales process. We took a deposit, got them on our schedule. And then, I even got experienced in Facebook ads. It was such a fun time for us. But I would come home from work at American Airlines around like 5 or 6. And then Becca and I would work together probably until about midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And we're just working together. And it was just so fun. I really enjoy those days where it was just brand new to us. And it was just exciting. Any little conversation we had was like, this person's interested in the wedding invitations. And we certainly charged very little when we first started. And we were able to increase our rates as we got more credibility. But yeah, that was kind of where things started with Hadley Designs.
Did most of your early revenue come as a result of your work with those Facebook groups, kind of plowing through those?
Yeah, definitely. So that's where it all started. That's where I kind of found the sweet spot for our marketing was in those Facebook groups. So like I said, I'm still a part of many of them. I've tried over the last few years. So like whenever I see them come up, I'm like, all right, I need to get out at this point. But yeah, I was in I think more than 1,000 different like wedding groups. So as you could imagine, my entire Facebook was nothing exciting to really look at in terms of, hey, this is what my friends are doing. It was definitely all about business. And it was like, I'm just talking to all these brides that are, looking for wedding invitations.
Would you say your approach helped you be successful, or was it just your willingness to constantly be there, or a combination of both?
Yeah, I think I had a good sales process. And I refined that over time. I also have experience in between summer semesters of college. I did door-to-door sales. Okay. So I was door-to-door selling pest control, and which was not easy, but amazing, like sales training experience. Like door-to-door sales is like by far the best sales training experience anybody could ever experience. And so I was able to apply many of those, I guess, sales tactics, if you will, into kind of like my conversation flow with these brides. And so again, I would get people, that say, hey, I'm reaching out or hey, does anybody know where I can find wedding invitations, I would quickly reach out to them, be like, hey, my wife's a graphic designer. We have our own custom wedding invitation business. Here's all the things we can do for you. What's your budget? And then from there, I had I had copy and paste messages. It got to the point where it's like, I know exactly what to say, what to do with a couple refinements. And then at the end of the day, it would spit out a great result.
What did you learn from door-to-door sales that has helped you? I think somebody like me, I think a lot of people are just scared of rejection or scared of what the people that you're talking to might think of you once you ring their doorbell and that they're going to be annoyed with you. What did you learn about, not only about how to overcome that, but about sales?
Yeah, I think that door-to-door sales training is I think the best training, not only just for sales, but life in general. Right now, I also served a 2-year mission, as I alluded to earlier. So I was used to, and at that time I was selling religion, if you will. But I was used to people saying no to me. Right. And I was like, that's okay. Let's move on to the next person. Right. And for sales, there were days that were definitely very challenging. So, but then days where it was like, hey, I'm just crushing it. Right. And the highs were super high and the lows were very, very low. What did I learn though from door-to-door selling? I think for me, it's the mentality that, like, I know it's simple to say, but like just never giving up. Right. Because, and I saw this from other sales reps that I would be working alongside, people would kind of, if they faced a lot of rejection early on during the day, they would kind of like allow their mental confidence to get the best of them. And they would be a lot slower going up to doors. And then it would just kind of like have this downward spiral of like, well, now you've created this day of it's not going to be good. To me, I had to never give up. And if you had a bad approach the last door, you got to shake it off and go hit the next door. And you got to keep that momentum going, because as soon as you get that one sale, all of your confidence level just like shoots through the roof. And then you're like, all right, I'm all in. Like, this is awesome. Like, here we go. But you got to keep grinding until you get to that point. And so I'd say it's that never giving up and grinding. And I would say that 100% applies into the entrepreneur I am today and how we've been able to grow Hadley Designs to where it is. Because again, it wasn't, I say we created this good sales process from Facebook to find these brides, but to be honest, like, it wasn't shooting fish in a barrel to begin with, right? Like, there was a lot of rejection. I'm not talking to people face to face, so there's a lot of like differences there. But you got to just shake things off. And some people would be like, you seem like super scammy. Like, I don't, you're a creepy dude. Like, why are you in these Facebook groups? It's mostly women in here. It's like, you just got to shake it off and go to the next person, because you're doing people a service, right? And it's not like I was trying to do anything maliciously. So to me, I had full confidence going forward and being like, hey, all right, let's just go to the next person. Let's let whatever people say just literally slide off my back. And my wife, always commends me on that. Even in our relationship today, she's like, yeah, you're really easy to bounce back from, like, if we have a disagreement or argument or something like that. Give me 5 minutes. And I'm like, all right, let's move on. She is more like, we've got to work through this, right? And I'm like, no, let's just move on. But anyways, I'd say that's something I learned.
Good. Hey, good for you. What was I going to say? I just had another question about that. How has your marketing approach evolved then from those early days in the Facebook groups to where it is now?
Yeah. So with Hadley Designs, our business has completely shifted from doing the custom wedding invitations. So we started doing the custom wedding invitations, and we did that for 2 years. I started out in doing the Facebook groups, but then I was like, there's got to be an easier way rather than me like manually combing through all of these Facebook groups. And at the time, like, Facebook advertising was brand new, and there were a lot of people like teaching how to create ads on Facebook, right? So I joined one of those courses. Have no idea who it was that I learned this from, but I followed his process in creating a Facebook ad and created a Facebook ad that just crushed it like out of the gate. Like I would say we were pretty lucky with that because it was like my first ad, and I instantly saw a lot of like bookings come through, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is cool. All we have to do is just kind of increase the spend. And it really did get to the point where Becca had a 6-month waiting list for people to have their wedding invitations designed by her. Like that's how big of like a lead system I had generated and had sold these people. We had gathered deposits and all of that stuff. So that was kind of like the inflection point of Hadley Designs. At that point, we were, our first son, he was born in 2015. So we already had a child, and we're like, all right, this isn't realistic for you, Becca, to be working all day and all night for the foreseeable future, right? Because that's the only way we could maintain the number of clients that we were working with. And so we're like, how do we scale this business beyond? We were genuinely capped out. We were making more than 6 figures, which was great, but we were capped out. There was no way to make more money unless we were to hire more graphic designers, which is easier said than done. And so at that time, there were a lot of courses teaching people to sell on Amazon, right? So that's when we had this wild idea. We had a lot of brides that would come back to us and they're like, can you do my baby shower invitations? Can you do recipe cards for my, bridal shower, things like that? And it's like, well, yes, we can, but you're probably not going to pay as much for those custom pieces as you would your wedding invitations. So we never ended up doing those things for clients, but it triggered in my mind, like, hey, what if we created these generic or mass-produced recipe cards? You can design them once and then sell them for perpetuity, right? And so that's what we did. We launched 3 recipe cards in the fall. This was like November of 2016. We launched 3 recipe cards and it crushed it. Like we did. I mean, when I say we crushed it, we were doing like, I don't know, maybe 50 sales a day for all 3 of those SKUs combined. And I was like, oh my goodness, like this is a complete mindset shift for me. Like this is such a simple product and look how much, how many sales we can generate from this. So from there, we got into baby shower invitations, right? We had the clients asking for those and they're just like the fill in the blank style. Like I'm surprised people still use those today, but they do. Invitations, we started selling those on Amazon. And we were able to, all of that, the cash flow was great from the custom wedding invitation side of business. The challenge with a physical products business and selling on Amazon is it takes a lot of capital to really, start, because you're investing in inventory and then you're not making money back on that inventory for, 2, 3, 4 months at a time. And so we took all of the money we made and continued to make from the custom wedding invitation business and just kept plowing it into new products. And so over the course of really from 2017 to where we're at today in 2022, we now have over 1,300 different SKUs that we're selling on Amazon. And so the business is vastly evolved over the last 5 years. We no longer do the custom wedding invitations. I think like 2017 was our last year of officially doing those. And then we've been on Amazon ever since.
Okay. Wow. That's amazing. In future episodes, we'll get into more of your journey with Hadley Designs and, some of the things you've had to overcome and how that tremendous growth has taken place. But for today, why don't you tell me, if you have a mentor, who is your mentor and what would you say that person's best advice was for you?
Yeah, great question. So in college, I would say my mentor was Troy D'Ambrosio. He is the director of the Lasan programs there at the University of Utah. I would meet with him on a weekly basis because I was the co-chair of the Utah Entrepreneur Series, and he would be, providing direction, and he really helped shape and form my ideas and what I knew about entrepreneurship. He himself has been a very, very successful entrepreneur and just kind of giving back at this point of, serving a lot of different college students. So I love that. He really, really helped shape my understanding of entrepreneurship and starting a business and business strategy. And I'm still very close with him as well, and my entire alumni group, and still work with him on a quite frequent basis. And then separately, I'd say post-college, I don't know that I would say I have one distinct mentor that like got me to where I am today. But what I would say is it's been a collection of, I'm always hungry to learn. So it's a combination of a lot of podcast episodes that I'm listening to every time I jump in the car. It is a combination of, like I mentioned, I had to teach myself how to create Facebook ads, right? When we started Hadley Designs, I found somebody that was teaching that course. That's not something that they really teach in college, right? But I had to be willing to pay and continue my education. So I learned that. Same thing with Amazon. Amazon was a brand new ball game for me. I purchased somebody's course, figured out how kind of Amazon worked. And then from there, I've, kind of learned from a lot of other entrepreneurs and have taken bits and pieces from them to create my own strategy and the way we approach business at this time. And so just kind of, I would say like the world has been my mentor, so to speak, in terms of, because I've been willing to learn and actively pursue knowledge.
Would you say that's been a key to your success?
Definitely. Yeah, because I think a lot of people, while they would come home from work or a long day, or, or, hey, there's a great show on Netflix, while they're doing that, I'm diving in and I'm watching a lot of training videos. There's not a lot of time that I spend playing video games or, watching Netflix series or any of that stuff. It's a lot of constant knowledge and a lot of, constant movement in momentum. And because of that, I would definitely say that's what's got me to where I am today.
So now you've got your own podcast that you're starting. What's it going to be about and who's it for, would you say?
Yeah, great question. So this is, for me to really give back, to be honest with you. I've learned a lot over the last, 7 years since we started Hadley Designs. And I have a lot of knowledge and I want to give back to, my younger self, so to speak. If I could be back in my shoes, starting things over again in 2015, what would I have liked to have heard? And really, it's the focus of this podcast, though, is going to be to help people go from 7 figures to 8 figures on Amazon. For us, the first year we were on Amazon, like a full year, was 2017. We generated $1 million in revenue that very first year. And that's why we were like, we're all in on Amazon. Like, we just hit $1 million our first year on Amazon. So we know that you can do that with like 1 or 2 people. That's not too challenging in terms of the e-commerce world. Amazon allows you, the way things are set up, to create a 7-figure business with just a couple people. But there is a very big difference of going from 7 figures to 8 and beyond, because you've got to start focusing on building out teams. You've got to start focusing on, strategies. And at that point, it's like there's too many ideas that you could execute on. How do you know where to invest your time most effectively that's going to give you the best return? And so as you start to build things out, business starts to become a lot more complex. And so I ran into a lot of mistakes, a lot of stumbling blocks, a lot of, plateaus throughout my process in getting Hadley Designs to an 8-figure brand. And I want to give back and help my younger self and other entrepreneurs that are in the same boat, just cross 7 figures. What's my next step to take? This podcast is going to be a lot of guests that I will be interviewing that are very successful. And what have they done to help them overcome those stumbling blocks, and what got them to where they are today, so that those entrepreneurs, those listeners can apply them to their own business, hopefully not make the same mistakes that I made at the same time.
Okay. Hey, that sounds great. Sounds very interesting, very valuable. I'll look forward to hearing it, and I'll look forward to speaking with you on future episodes. Thanks so much for having me today, Josh.
Thanks, Chad. I appreciate the conversation.
Thank you for listening. Visit ecommbreakthrough.com for more information. If you've enjoyed today's episode, the best way you can show your appreciation is by clicking the subscribe button and quickly leaving a review. See you again next time.